Thank you very much. And I'm glad that so many people come to see my presentation. So it's not only my work I'm going to present, it's the joint work from Katharina, me, Martin and Edgar from SBA Research. I have no idea what I'm doing on the usability of deploying HTTPS. If you rather prefer reading stuff, you can just go to the Usenix page because we published this research at Usenix Security this year in Vancouver. It's open access, so just go to the homepage, download the paper, and you get everything in really more detail than I can present here with the time. So let's start. Winter is coming, it's getting cold outside, and imagine you get ill, you go to the doctor, and she's saying, I have no idea what I'm doing. I guess you would be scared a little bit because you expect this expert to know what they are doing. But okay, that's just the doctor. Imagine you go on holiday, you fly to the south, to the beach, you embark on the airplane and the pilot is saying, welcome to flight 123, but actually we don't have any idea what we are doing in here. I guess you would get out of this airplane quite fast. But now, imagine an IT administrator in his room saying, I have no idea what I'm doing. Would you care? Do you care? Do you even notice? And that's kind of a big problem. But okay, it's just an IT administrator. We don't even recognize if they are doing some mistake. But I bet you have seen your connection is not private. At HTTPS error sometime in your history. That's an error you get with wrong HTTPS configuration. And I guess you use HTTPS every day. I guess, yeah, some people in the audience use HTTPS right now on their mobile phone, I see. HTTPS is the fundamental basis of web security. You're using it every day. You're using it with online banking. You're using it with Facebook uploading your secret documents. And so it is affecting your life, and you should care about people not having any clue what they are doing. And this is exactly what was our motivation to conduct a study. So we knew, or we assumed, that there are really a lot of HTTP misconfigurations out there. And we thought about the reasons. It cannot be that it's just a technology fault, or is it? And then we thought maybe we should look at the people that configure our TLS configuration, that are the administrators. Normal administrators working on secure deployments. And we thought maybe it has to do with the usability of the process of deploying HTTPS. So we looked at this and said, yeah, let's conduct a user study to this, for this problem. So we are just letting some people configuring HTTPS on Apache. And with this study, we're going to find out what the problems on deploying HTTPS are. So we know that there are bad configurations with internet scanning. So maybe you know SSL Test, the tool to grade your HTTPS configuration. And they are also doing regular scans on all hosts that are out there. This is a statistic from the 200,000 most used websites 2 years ago, and we see that more than half of it having a bad TLS configuration. That's a simple grading. A is good, B is not as good, F is bad, and we see there are not too many A configurations, but we would like this number. And this is one problem we have with HTTPS configurations. The other one is HTTPS usage in general, because the statistic before was only looking at existing HTTPS configurations. When we look at the beginning of this graph, which is 2015, we see that only 40% of the traffic is encrypted via HTTPS. And we assume that this is because the process is not usable. So let's talk about the user study we conducted. Was a lab study. We looked for 28 knowledgeable participants. So we looked at the Vienna University of Technology to find 28 people that have an admin background. And we said, let's conduct a study with them because they are knowledgeable participants. They are experts in their field. And it's just a simple task. You have a HTTP-enabled web server. You go on, you just enable HTTPS, that's so simple. You get a valid certificate, that's quite simple. You integrate it, you harden it a little bit, you test your configuration, you're done. That should be doable in 1 hour, I guess, for everyone. I mean, that's easy stuff. We conducted this in pre-Let's Encrypt era. I'm going to talk about Let's Encrypt a little bit in the future. But so this was with a conventional certificate authority. Getting a certificate should totally be possible. I assume everyone is capable of. But we then really did this with people sitting in front of a computer, having 1 hour to fulfill this task, and we were watching closely. So we were sitting next to them and write a specific protocol, what they are doing, what they are saying, what they are looking at, while installing HTTPS in Apache. And of course, we had this configuration afterwards. So we had the Apache logs, we had the bash history, we had the browser history, so we knew which online sources they are looking at. So we conducted this study. But of course, you wouldn't say that sound scientific methods, just using 28 people to install and look at them and then you have good research. No, of course not. If you're interested, you have to look in the paper. First, we did this with sound methods. So we started with a recruitment questionnaire, went on with this lab study, went on to a post-study questionnaire where we asked, like, did you have previous experience? What are the demographics? How long are you working in the field? How experienced are you? And then to confirm our ecological validity, we also asked some experts, some really known security auditors that look at TLS quite often to confirm that. So that was our overall methodology. Not just looking at people installing HTTPS, but that was the main part. And it was quite interesting because after these 28 people, we had quite a lot of data to use for getting our results. So we had these observation protocols and data results. And these are two parts we analyzed. First, the qualitative analysis, which would say how is it really working, and the quantitative analysis, where we looked at the results. So are they good graded or aren't they graded as well? So we evaluated all the results and got to a really complicated big table. When you're interested, just look it up in the paper. A lot of black dots and not as black dots. But I can sum it up quite easily. Only 4 participants in our study were able to deploy an A-grade configuration, which is only 1/4 of the people. You would expect that to be more in 1 hour. And then 15 people deployed a B-grade configuration, and 4 people in our study did not manage to deploy any valid configuration. There are some other grades, so they are not shown. In some it's 28. But in the end, you see that this qualitative analysis is quite similar to the statistics we had in the beginning. Only 25% A-grade, the rest is somewhere in between, and some fail, which is a big problem. When we look deeper, we can see that 2 participants used self-signed certificates, which is clearly a sign that they didn't understand the CA hierarchy at all. We were interested that they all were using big keys, I guess, because bigger keys are better all the way. So let's just use a big key and we are safe, they're secure. Perfect. But then we see like forward secrecy only deployed by 14 people. HSTS deployed by 11 people. And then really interesting, HPKP is deployed by 2 people. But now we see the problem. TLS is changing so quickly that now we see that HPKP is not a sound recommendation to do because there are problems with HPKP. So even they thought about having the most secure deployment, don't have it because HPKP is not advised anymore. So that was the qualitative analysis. And then we looked at how people got to this result. So of course, when you start your work, you just Google, look for information. Then you create your key pair, CSR, you interact with the CA, you integrate your certificates, and then you have your basic TLS configuration. And of course, people say, let's encrypt is kind of the new king in the TLS ecosystem. Let's Encrypt is changing everything. But in fact, Let's Encrypt is only changing the setup phase. This is easier, but then we get into the second phase we identified, the hardening phase. So here we have different problems that the people tackled after each other. like trying to get a HTTPS only configuration and deactivating HTTP, or trying to disable all cipher suites and all protocol versions. And these are problems on their own, and people took some time to do that. And we see that with our conventional approach to install TLS, nothing is nothing is really usable to do for administrators. So after our lab study, we went on to ask the people how they perceived the installation process to be. And we thought that many participants told, 19 in fact, that this workflow, to find a good working workflow, is really hard. You Google tons of pages, you find information how to do it, but there was no clear workflow how to set up a really secure configuration. 15 people told us misleading terminology. You have like CRT, you have PEM, you have everything is confusing people. So even this is not really usable for normal administrators. And then you have weak default configuration. So you would expect when you install Apache and install a certificate that is in fact a little bit like secure. But no, the default configuration is often really bad and not supporting a good configuration. You can just test it afterwards. So, because you may wonder why we have this title, one participant was saying, while the study, I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing, neither am I aware of whether my online source is trustworthy. Which is one problem we identified that I'm going to talk a little bit more. Because, you see, you have people that want to install a really secure installation, and they don't know it. They look for, they gather for information, but they cannot be sure if the information they have is correct, which is kind of a problem. We observed this behavior sometimes while the study was going on. People were looking on pages, going to the OpenSSL page, looking into the documentation. Oh, they found a good documentation, but it was wrong. It was just not secure at all. It was the documentation how to enable all cryptographic primitives, the old ones, the really old ones, and the really, really old ones, which is kind of bad. And the second participant was saying the configuration process is fiddly and one has to Google tons of pages to get it right. And even then, you cannot be sure to have a good configuration because vulnerabilities are discovered almost on a regular basis. And it doesn't have to be vulnerabilities, because when you look at HPKP, which seemed to be a good alternative to even secure the installation more, HPKP is now seen a little bit problematic. So the focus changes, which is a good and which is not a good configuration. We further analyzed everything. I'm going to skip it a little bit. Like, we looked at the average number of visited websites to configure, which was 60 pages. Which is quite a lot, but the number of websites, they had no impact. So people were just looking a lot and they didn't find out which was the correct information, which wasn't. And with all these online sources, we identified that when you don't have an understanding of the cryptographic primitives that are used underneath, you cannot be sure if it's right. When you don't know how stuff works, you don't know if the configuration is correct. But we cannot expect administrators to know everything. Of course, IT experts in big companies, they have enough manpower to just do it right. But when we look at small and medium enterprises, especially in Austria, we have administrators that are not, that don't have enough time to understand everything, like the real cryptography that is used. So we also looked at, okay, maybe when people are working as administrators for a long time, they maybe are just more experienced and they do a better job. We looked at it and we looked at especially if they have experience in installing HTTPS. And of course, if they had already installed HTTPS, they were a little bit better. But we also looked at that there was no evidence that previous employment impacts the quality. So we had people that were working for a really long time, and they were also not able to do it. So we see that are usability problems. We looked at more usability challenges, but I think I'm going to pick only the last one, finding the right balance between security and compatibility, which was a major obstacle for all of them. So even if they knew what the methods they were deploying are doing, they were not sure if it's okay to use them because they wanted to stay compatible to old clients. So you have to decide. And this decision was really hard because it could not be an informed decision. So, after the lab study and the identified usability problems, we thought, okay, we are going to talk with security auditors to confirm our results. Like, is it really like that when people audit companies? And so we asked 7 security auditors from different companies with quite a lot of experience. And we asked them, and they also reported that the configurations in the wild, they have poor cipher suites, they are not hardened, and they often use self-signed certificates. So also here we see that our usability problems are valid in the wild. They talked about admins that were afraid of using crypto because it was too complicated for them. And this is kind of a problem because we have to enforce the use of crypto, but to do that we have to do it in a usable way. Otherwise people won't use it. Coming back to the compatibility, one expert was saying in most cases backward compatibility is the showstopper regarding proper TLS configuration. That is often an argument, but sometimes just a mock argument. I'm just thinking about this super fancy JavaScript homepage, which is only working with the newest browsers, but then people have a TLS configuration that still supports Internet Explorer 6. So what for? What for? Your stuff is only running on newest browsers. Get a modern TLS configuration. But even for experts, it's hard to find a good balance between the compatibility and the TLS configuration. So with all this knowledge, which was created 1.5 years ago, we thought let's take a look at nowadays, because Let's Encrypt changed it a little bit, and we got, especially in the last 2 years, a lot of tool support that is bringing usability to this process. So I mentioned it sometimes, Let's Encrypt. I hope that everyone right now knows Let's Encrypt. It's a free, automated, and open certificate authority. So it was really completely changing TLS ecosystem, because the first time it was really easy to get a free, like a €0 certificate for your server. And it was also automated, or it is also automated. So you can just do it in an automated fashion without fiddling around in this process. And it's open. The open thing supports that there is a lot of other tool support working with Let's Encrypt, like Thirdbot, a really nice EFF project from the Electronic Frontier Foundation. So when you look at this, it's from the page, when you go to the homepage of Thirdbot, you tell Thirdbot which web server software you're using, like Apache, and on which operating system. Here it's Ubuntu. This is our test setup. And when you choose these 2 products, you get a 4-point instruction to set up HTTPS. So there you think about a clear process in 4 simple instructions, so everyone is able to more easily install HTTPS. So these 2 projects really changed the setup phase a lot. But then you think, okay, that's in the setup phase. We know there's the hardening phase, so we have to support the hardening phase as well. And here I first want to mention Ssl Labs. I hope that everyone here used Ssl Labs before. If not, just go to the homepage and type in, like Google Ssl Labs, go there and type in your company homepage. Like here I Googled IT-SECX, and then you get your grading. You get a grade, a simple A. You don't get like a description, you also get the page-long description, but you get this simple A that is understandable. It's like A++ on your fridge. People understand A is good. And yeah, it's funny because I saw web hosters already saying we have a A-grade SSL hosting as a marketing argument. So it works that people now want a better TLS configuration A-grade. Test your homepage, test it out. And if you want to do a little bit more testing, go to hardenize.com, which is the newest project from Ivan Ristic, which is one of the most knowledgeable TLS guys. And Hardenize will not only test TLS, but also, for instance, DNS settings or mail settings or your HTTP headers. Two really good projects to test. So when you looked at the diagram of the hardening phase, people try to harden it a little bit more and go back to if it still works. And with Ssl Labs, it's possible to just hardening it a little bit, test it again, and you see what you have done and what you haven't. So you can just go on and harden it even more, until you get an A grade. And even for the issue, we identified like getting the right balance between compatibility and security. We can point to nice projects now like the Mozilla SSL configuration generator. It's a simple web page. You choose your server product and you choose a simple, like modern, intermediate or old configuration you want to have, and you get a really good configuration. So here you can be sure that it's true, and you can be sure that the right level of compatibility is true, because you see which browser is supported. So here we see, do I really need Internet Explorer 7 to work for my page? Or do I need even more? Then I go to old configuration. And this simple step is making the process of configuring Apache, of configuring HTTPS really a lot more usable. So, when we look at the results, this happened in the last 2 years. We see that we now go to 60% of page loads in Firefox that are over HTTPS. So there's still a lot of room to improve to finally get to 100% HTTPS support. And this is, I would say, because now we are shifting. Big companies, big players on the market like Facebook, Google, they had already good TLS configurations. But now we look on the long tail. We look at small and medium enterprises. We look at small companies that have this IT guy setting up everything. And now the IT guy is even more supported to do a better job. And now we can go on to an internet where HTTPS is the norm. When we look at the Ssl Pulse Statistics from this year, we see that we have over 60% A-grade configurations. You have to know that this statistics is only for the top 200K websites. So when we look at the long tail of websites, this is shifting to not as good configurations. But even here we see an improvement, and we can steadily go on to a better internet. So I want to conclude it with you reminding the first pages, like the first slides, where you say, is it really okay when an administrator says that she has no idea what she is doing? It is a challenging task, even for experienced admins. We figured it out, and we should take that serious, because otherwise we cannot get a secure internet. Administrators struggle with important security decisions, and we should find a way to support them to find the right decision, because that's the only way to get HTTPS fully replacing HTTP, which is not only my opinion, that should happen rather fast than late. It's also the opinion from Chrome, from Firefox, and so on. So feel free to contact me anytime to ask. Thank you.